Imagine, if you will, a world where child labor never existed. In this world, skills like washing dishes and sweeping the floor are part of the high school curriculum to prepare children to become adults. In this world, paper routes are done by adults of every age or even by the postal service. Child soldiers are something only heard of in comic books and fiction stories. Child Protection Service patrols the world similar to traffic police. One day, a leader rises to power and suggests that this practice end, that children contribute to the workforce, but not be given rights. Citizenship, voting, drinking, smoking, marriage, intercourse, driving, and being able to consent to surgery, still locked behind adulthood, whatever age that may be considered in this world. The leader pushes through new laws, ignoring the protests of the overwhelming majority. Many parents refuse to comply with the new laws. Government crackdowns ensue, attempting to arrest unemployed children and put them into work camps. As a last-ditch effort, many parents, teachers, and community members start paying local children an allowance, the equivalent of minimum wage for the minimum number of hours per week to be considered employed. When the auditors pass by, they claim that the children are on break, or this is their day off. The adults forge papers claiming the children worked, and made sure whatever task was written would be difficult for the police to prove the children had missed it. A faction of voters arise, urging compromise. Maybe children can do homework or cleaning at the school they attend, yard work in their community, but nothing dangerous, and maybe restrict their hours compared to adults. Another group reacts to this with envy. Why should all the easy jobs go to the children? Why not give those local jobs to the elderly or people with mobility issues? Maybe the children can clean offices, fetch coffees, prepare food, answer phones, do data entry. Nothing with too much danger or responsibility, but things that take them far away from home and school. Rationalization sweeps the world. Work builds character. More years of experience will give them a leg up on the competition. The faster they can rise up through the corporate ladder, the better off they will be. Maybe we can make the last year or two of education optional for those children who have already figured out what they want to do as a career. Extra workers grows the economy. If we go back, there would be a recession or maybe even a depression. It takes 4 incomes to support a family. If you take away their right to work, they'll be homeless and destitute. If you take away their wages, then their housework will become slavery and forced labor. A sick darkness engulfs society. Children work a wider variety of jobs until eventually there is no delineation between them and adults. Their rights are an afterthought. The driving age is lowered to allow them to do more work. The age requirements for drugs and alcohol become more of a blurry guideline rather than a hard rule. A separate age of consent is drawn up to allow children intimate relationships with adults. Before long, they are given authority to sign contracts and consent to surgery. The entertainment industry seizes the opportunity, using children as models and voiceless extras, or having them lip sync to music to draw a crowd. The novelty of deep elderly voices coming out of tiny children's mouths becomes a popular fad for a while. But that's not enough. Child actors and musicians flood the market, propped up by wealthy parents or exploitative contracts that only benefit the companies they serve. Meanwhile, the ugly or less obedient children are sent to the mines, or into the wilderness of logging camps, deep-sea fishing boats, and offshore oil rigs. Their tiny frames can get into places it's difficult for adults to fit. Maintenance shafts are designed with smaller openings to save on materials now that they have access to a shorter workforce. One company takes the child acting too far, into the realms of pornography. Many people sit by and nervously wait for the public's reaction, but it never surfaces. With no pushback, the last industry is flung open to child workers. Citizenship and voting rights become a privilege earned by years of service, rather than a right given to all at a certain age. Those unable to work are deemed unworthy of voting. A light emerges. Small protests erupt in a handful of cities. Their signs read, "Bring back childhood." Many see them as harkening back to a time that never existed, or an idealized version of the past. Some barter for a way forward, a halfway point that doesn't match what happened historically. Maybe they can reduce voting requirements or increase the minimum age to work. The embers of revolution smolder as a counter-revolutionary movement seeks to snuff them out. Accusations of wanting free child labor, house servants, or sex slaves are thrown at the protesters without evidence. Violence erupts. Fire and darkness and blood engulf the world. If you already discovered my point, I hope you left your thoughts in the comments. For everyone else, I'll be frank. I think child actors should be illegal. I disagree with the United States considering allowing minors to drive transport trucks. I think paper routes should pay minimum wage or more, rather than a few cents per house. I don't think teenagers should be allowed to work with boiling oil at McDonald's. I think small businesses that get their children to drop out of school and work for them should be shut down for violating child labor laws. I think the exception for farming, allowing child labor, should be removed. My justification is imagining a world without these and asking myself if good people or bad people would be the ones advocating to begin these practices. I apply this same philosophy to most political questions. If sales tax didn't exist, would good people advocate to create it? Or would bad people advocate sales tax? What about toll roads? Interest charges on loans? What about inheritance gifts? What about having a single figurehead who represents millions of people in government? If music or filtered water didn't exist, I think good people would advocate to create them. If internet anonymity didn't exist, I'm not sure who would advocate for it to begin. For me, anonymity allows me to express my opinions without fear of violence or losing my job. I can see how bad people would advocate for anonymity so they could send death threats without consequences. But I also see how bad people would advocate to end anonymity so they can act on death threats. When bad people advocates for both sides of a binary, my philosophical trick doesn't provide an easy answer. Is there anything you think would be good to change if it were as easy as writing it down? New videos every Saturday, and I remind you all I'm not getting paid for this and likely won't ever make a cent from YouTube.